Good evening. Let me tell you a little bit about my friend Cyd Zeigler. If you didn't see the plaque, he's the guy with the glasses. And when I was in the 5th grade, Cyd's 2 years older than I am, my buddies were telling me about this kid in the 7th grade that could dunk the basketball. And I said, I'll believe it when I see it. And one Saturday, I was at the high school, and we were just hacking around playing basketball, and I saw Cyd dunk it in the 7th grade, and it was amazing. So, a few years later, he's in the 9th grade, he's on the JV basketball team, and Harwich had good teams and made what was called the Tech Tournament back then, and we had a game against, I forget the name of the school, but they had this player, Rick Catherman, who, by the way, is his number is retired at Duke. He went on to play at Duke, Cyd, and so he was pretty good. But they had this no-dunk rule, which I knew was going to take a lot of my game away as I got older. But anyway, you couldn't dunk it. So Charlie Dunbar, Coach Dunbar, came up with an idea. Cyd was in the 9th grade. He said, there's no rule against dunking in warm-up, so we'll try to intimidate this Rick Catherman guy by having Cyd dunk it in warm-ups, which he did. And unfortunately, he wasn't that intimidated because we lost the game, but it was a lot of fun. So I was fortunate enough, when my sophomore year, playing on the varsity, and Cyd was a senior, and with those glasses, it was like Clark Kent out on the basketball court. Only he didn't take the glasses off. He was just boom. And they still had the no dunking rule, but it's true. He could touch the rim with his elbow. He can still touch the rim with his elbow, because we played volleyball on a regular basis for many years, and I've seen him do it. We became roommates on away trips, especially at Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. And we taught each other magic tricks and card tricks, and helped each other out with the tricks a little bit with Manny Fernandez and Dennis Barrett and some of the boys, and took advantage of them and had a lot of fun. Then this high jumping thing developed with Cyd that just kind of evolved quietly, because there was no track team back then and no coach. And I started reading in the paper about Cyd jumping, so I went to DY one time to a track meet, and I saw Cyd jump 6 feet 4 inches. It was unbelievable. I mean, just imagine, can you jump 6 inches over your head? Or Cyd's 6'2", 2 inches over his head. And he went on to jump, what, 6'9"? 6'6", and was the Massachusetts state champion. And for many years, he will always be the first state champion to bring home that honor to Harwich High School before some of Fred Thatcher's baseball teams. About, I would say, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now, there was a big to-do, a zoning question at town meeting coming up regarding the industrial zone where Cyd lived. And I had heard that Cyd, who could be opinionated at times and somewhat hot-headed sometimes, I said, oh boy, this is going to be a show. And I went to town meeting, and it came up, and sure enough, Cyd got up, and he spoke very well, he spoke very effectively, got his opinion across, and was successful in turning the issue his way, I believe. So several years later, it was no surprise when he ran for selectman for the town of Harwich. Kind of an Abe Lincoln type, with the beard, no nonsense, common sense, old-time values, his word is his bond, good communicator, and reliable, both personally and professionally. And I've always known that if I needed something, Cyd would get in his car or his truck and be on his way down from Maine, and he would be there to do anything that I needed him for. So it's my honor to introduce to you tonight, or present to you tonight, my friend Cyd Zeigler, outstanding Harwich High School athlete, outstanding Harwich selectman, he was chairman of the board, and outstanding person.
First of all, let me say that I am both humbled and honored to be here this evening. My wife Debbie came down from Maine with me, and my son Cyd and his partner Dan are here from New York City with us this evening. My other two children, Jessica and Greg, both live in Florida, and they couldn't be here this evening. To be considered in the same company as the people who have already been inducted into the Harwich High School Hall of Fame is overwhelming to me. People like Charlie Dunbar and Fred Ebbett, Glenn Rose, just to mention a couple of the people who have been inducted, is just truly an honor to be considered on their level. In my early years in Harwich High School, Charlie Dunbar not only coached me in basketball, he took his personal time after school and on Saturdays to see that I received training in high jumping. Charlie really believed in me, and he took his time to take me over to Dennis Yarmouth High School, where then coach Al Carlson, a great track coach for Dennis Yarmouth High School, taught me to high jump. Charlie and I talked a lot, both in those early days and later on, and sometimes I didn't know quite what Charlie meant, what he was talking to me. But 10 or 15 years later in my life, I would say, geez, that's what Charlie meant. He wasn't really trying to so-called prepare me for the athletics, but he was preparing me for life. He spoke of a lot of different things, and later in life, as I say, they just jumped out at me and said, geez, that's what Charlie meant, and I really didn't understand him. But Harwich is a beautiful place. There were so many outdoor things we did in those early days. Bill talked about striper fishing. We fished, we hunted, we camped, you know, and there wasn't a lot of development in those days, so we could do a lot of these things in a lot of the areas. But we also spent countless hours playing basketball and football and baseball in the sandlots, and we always had those big games, or at least they seemed big to us in those days. But Harwich has really been about the people who live here and who have lived here. I think of people like Charlie Dunbar and Jimmy Marceline, to mention just a couple of the hundreds of people that have touched my life. Whether it was a local sports team they supported, or others in the community in need, people of Harwich have always come through for them with a real sense of community. With diversity abound as far back as I can remember, Harwich has always had that sense of community. Whether it was playing basketball in Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, which we did and enjoyed. We enjoyed the evenings sitting in the hotel lobby playing cards and doing card tricks. Or serving as a selectman, the people of Harwich have always been willing participants and have been very supportive of things that I have done. And although we may live far away now and are pursuing other dreams, Harwich will always be home. And now, if I might borrow a quote from an Academy Award-winning movie, "We come far, you and me." Thank you, and good evening.